Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese. This is a quick reaction pod because Igor Tudor has just been sacked by Juventus. Juventus have just communicated in the last few minutes that today it has relieved Igor Tudor of his duties as head coach of the first team, along with his staff consisting of Ivan Vlahovic, Tomislav Rogic, and Riccardo Ragnacci. Juventus also announces that it has temporarily entrusted the men's first team to Massimo Brambilla, who will be on the bench for the Juventus-Udinese match on Wednesday evening. The club thanks Igor Tudor and the entire staff for their professionalism and dedication over the past few months and wishes them all their best for their future careers. So Tudor is out. Brambilla is the interim coach until Juventus find a permanent replacement for Tudor. So yeah, that is the breaking news. To be honest with you, we've already recorded our full Monday pod, which we recorded before this news, and you'll be able to see us discuss in more detail about all the problems at Juventus following that defeat to Lazio. But this is specific. I'm specifically now just going to talk about Tudor. And to be honest with you, it was inevitable that he would be sacked. It looked maybe like he might get 2 more games, but Juventus have decided to pull the trigger now. It was inevitable whether it happened now or in 2, 3, 4 games. It's just not working. Juventus really had no choice than to make this decision. 8 without a win, which is the worst run in 16 years. 3 straight defeats, 4 games without scoring a goal, which is the worst run in 34 years. You can't survive as Juventus manager with these kind of numbers. 8th in Serie A, out of the Champions League, top 24. The performances have been abysmal. All of the summer signings have been a disaster. Tudor's fallen out with Damien Comolli, who's the guy that's heading up the football project at Juventus, over the Mercato. He doesn't like any of the new signings, really. Doesn't really want to play them. He hasn't been giving them much of a chance. He's been publicly, he's really criticised Comolli publicly. We saw before the Como game where he basically said, I didn't get to choose my signings for Juventus, whereas Cesc Fabregas gets to choose all of his signings for Como. That wasn't taken very well. So there's it's inevitable when you're not getting on with the people that you're working for. And when the results and the performances are as bad as this, it was inevitable that this was going to happen. Do I have sympathy for Tudor? Yes, I do, because the problem is much bigger than him, as Alessandro Del Piero said on Italian TV over the last few days. The team has been constructed so badly. You look at this Juventus team, this Juventus squad, and I don't think it matters who the manager is, they're going to struggle with these players. Juventus, they have no right back. They're having to play Kalulu, who is a centre back, as a right back or right wing back all season. They're at least a man short at centre back. They're at least a man short at centre midfield. They have 3 strikers. They've constructed a team with 3 strikers, 3 number 9s, of which only one can play at one time because they're incompatible to play more than one of them, to play 2 of them together. They signed Zegrova, who has a chronic injury, which he still has now, was out for several months, still has the chronic injury. Who knows when he's going to be fit and recover from that chronic injury. Yet they've signed a player who plays in exactly the same role as Conceição and can't play in the same team as Conceição. So this just, those are just a few examples of how badly constructed this team is. And as I said on the Monday podcast, this Juventus is the worst squad of my lifetime. It's worse than the Banter era of 2009 to 11, because that team, even though it finished 7th, that team at least had a core of players that you could build from. If you wanted to hope for better times, and if you wanted to give some hope to the supporters that, yes, we're doing badly at the moment, but in a year or 2 years' time, we're not far away from becoming a top team again. At least that team had Buffon in goal. It had the BBC in defence, Baselli, Bonucci, Chiellini. It had Marchisio at midfield. You had a core there, 4 or 5 players through the centre that, with one good Mercato, bring in a top manager, as they did with Antonio Conte, bring in, make a few really top signings like with Pirlo, with Vidal. You could suddenly build a top team. It wasn't that far away if Juventus were, if they were constructed well. You look at this team now, and as I said on Monday, as I said in the full pod the full Monday pod, this team is Yildiz, there's Thuram. Other than that, I don't see any guarantees. Bremer should be a guarantee in terms of ability, he is, but he's done his ACL. He's now got a serious meniscus injury. He probably won't play again this year. And so there's no guarantee he will come back and become the same player because of that problem with it, And Cambiasso, I thought in 2024 was growing into something. He's been a disaster in 2025. Tudor even said himself he can't play as a left back because he can't defend. So I don't see him as a guarantee anymore either. So it's basically, for me, there's two players. Conceição, I think, has a role to play. Maybe not as a guaranteed starter all the time, but I think he has a role to play. Apart from that, there's no players here in this Juventus team who I think are good enough to play for a Napoli, for an Inter, even for a Milan. And that's how far off the level of players are. And for me, there's only Yildiz and Thuram who I think can be built from and say, right, those are Juventus level players. The rest are not. And that shows you how badly Juventus have been run, how badly Juventus have been constructed. And it shows why you can't blame Tudor, really. Yes, we can say Tudor is not of the level. He's not a Juventus level manager. We know that. But the problem is a lot bigger than Igor Tudor. And whoever comes in to replace Tudor, we'll get to possible replacements in a second, they're going to struggle. This Juventus. It's laughable that some people consider this Juventus a potential Scudetto challenger. I mean, just look at the players. It's not a Scudetto challenger, even with Serie A being a lot weaker than it was. It's way off the level of Inter, of Napoli. Just compare the two squads with Juventus, compare the players. So yeah, I have some sympathy for Tudor, but at the same time, yes, I think the change had to be made. It's a shame because this is a player that was at Juventus as a player for so many years, part of such a successful Juventus team, and he did have a good impact at the end of last season. He rescued the top four when it looked like under Thiago Motta, the Juventus weren't even going to get in the top four. But yeah, this season, and obviously this run of form, it's been horrendous. Brambilla, as the Juventus statement says, will be the interim manager. He'll be in charge for the game in midweek. Then we'll see who the permanent coach is. It's difficult because Juventus have two managers. Again, this shows how badly they've been run. They have two managers now who are on contract and paid up until 2027 in Tudor and in Thiago Motta. So they bring in another permanent coach. They're going to have another coach paid on the books. So at a time when financially it's difficult, that's just terrible. Palladino has been the favourite up until the last hours. We'll see if he gets the job. Obviously, former Juventino, played there, was in the youth system there. Spalletti, Mancini, but it seems like they want longer contracts, whereas Juventus want to appoint a manager until the end of the season because of this situation, also financially with the number of coaches on their books. Ange Postecoglou, now we're full. Well, I think we already are in banter era Juventus, but we're full on banter era if Postecoglou gets the job. Edin Terzic of Borussia Dortmund. Laurent Blanc has just been offered to the Juventus staff, to the Juventus club, according to Nicola Sciarra. That's just breaking now. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Damien Comolli, being French, appointed him, but my God, if they appoint Laurent Blanc. And Thiago Motta has even been mentioned. He's still under contract. It wouldn't be the first time. It's an Italian cultural thing. They often bring back coaches, usually at the smaller clubs, but if coaches that have been sacked and still under contract, they bring them back. I don't see it happening because he didn't have quite a particularly great relationship with a lot of players, and with the management. So we'll see with that. Whoever it is, though, like I said, they're going to struggle because of the players they have. Juventus don't have the players. They don't have the players. The club is being run, as I said last week, being run abysmally from up above. John Elkann, I'm sorry, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a football man. He's not a sports man. We've seen what he's done with Ferrari. While he is calling the shots and making big decisions, including bringing in Comolli. I had some reservations about Comolli. It's still early days. I don't want to write him off after 2 or 3 months, but based on what I've seen him do in football, he failed at Liverpool, wasn't very successful at Tottenham. His successors have come at smaller clubs in France, Saint-Etienne. Okay, some will say those are a traditionally huge club, but they're not a big modern club. They're not fighting for big titles. Toulouse, the same. When he's been at big clubs in the big positions, he did well as a scout at Arsenal, very good as a scout at Arsenal. We were talking about 25 years ago. As a, in a top director position, CEO, head of football, sporting director, whatever, he hasn't succeeded at the big clubs. Elkan gave him the keys. That's a question mark. There's so many question marks at Juventus. The club has been run so badly from up above, starting with Elkan. That's why I said last week that Elkan needs to give the keys to somebody that knows what they're doing. Whether that's bringing Andrea Agnelli back. Obviously, there's political issues there, legal issues with Elkan. Whether that's somebody else, obviously Marotta being heavily involved for many years. Juventus are just not being run very well. And that's why when things are poisoned from up above, like with Manchester United in England, it's impossible to succeed. No matter who the manager is, who the people running the show is. And this is Juventus' biggest issue here. And this is why we're in this situation where, yet again, they're sacking another manager. How many managers have they gone through in the last year or two? I mean, Allegri, Motta, Tudor. Now we've got another manager. It's going to be an interim manager. I mean, it's one of the lowest points in Juventus' history. It really is. And here we are. Juventus face a battle for finishing in the top four this season. And whoever the new manager has his work cut out, no doubt about it. Anyway, that's just a quick snap reaction to the news. This will be coming out before the full Monday pod, which we recorded before this news come out, but there's still lots to talk about. I went into great detail about Juventus on that and the bigger problems. We talk about all the other games as well, including, of course, the Napoli versus Inter game as well. So, check that out. That will be coming out not too long after this comes out. So, have a good day and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.